Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Mimosa Fridays podcast, a show where we share powerful life lessons and a few laughs as Gail empowers others as she sits at the intersection of people, purpose, and politics while sipping on mimosas. Holidays are upon us, shipping containers have stalled, store shelves are limited. What will be under the Christmas tree? Unwrap your business products and services on News in Motion broadcast and Mimosa Fridays podcast with Gail, available to support your success as prime real estate in a committed audience. Contact News in Motion with Gail at gmail.com to reserve your live 3-minute spot. The first Unwrap This Live is October 25th. Don't delay. Only 24 spots are available for $297 each. Contact today. Now grab some orange juice and champagne and welcome your host, Gail Dudley.
This is Gail Dudley, your host of News in Motion and Mimosa Friday. It is Mimosa Friday and we have a podcast with Andre Davis. Andre Davis is the founder of A Diamond Entertainment. He is a writer, producer, and a director. In addition to all of that, he is the leading male role of James and is played by Andre in what we call the man of the house. His experience as a singer includes opening for some of the best in today's R&B music, including people like Brian McKnight, Anthony Hamilton, and of course, Patti LaBelle. We also have the Wendy Williams, to name a few. His theater credits include Dreamgirls, After the Walk, featuring Grammy-nominated artist Kelly Price, and Underneath It All, featuring Stellar Award winner Kiera Sheard. Andre is also an alumni of Keene University. When we're looking at their mission statement for A Diamond Entertainment, their mission statement is to provide quality entertainment via music, television, film, and stage. Their goal is to share authentic stories from the male perspective that are very prevalent but seldom ever discussed. What is domestic violence? Domestic violence can be physical, emotional, economic, psychological actions or threats of actions that influence another person. This includes any behaviors that intimidate, manipulate, humiliate, isolate, frighten, terrorize, coerce, threaten, blame, hurt, injure, or wound someone. Emotional abuse is defined as determining an individual's sense of self-worth and or self-esteem is abuse. This may include, but is not limited to, constant criticism, diminishing one's abilities, name-calling, or damaging one's relationship with his or her children. Man of the House focuses on the emotional abuse aspect of domestic violence. Let me give you some history and a synopsis of the stage play Man of the House. It is a drama comedy that revolves around one man's struggle to save his relationship and get his life on track, while the woman in his life runs their home, his life, and everything in it. Domestic violence with a twist, as the male is the victim as opposed to the abuser. We've been talking the past few weeks during Domestic Violence Month from the female perspective based upon her account of the story. Today, we're going to hear about domestic violence as the male, as the victim, as opposed to the abuser. The comedy in the play never centers around the actual abuse. Therefore, audiences are being educated while being entertained. Um, there was a study in 2010. The CDC conducted a national intimate partner survey, and the results showed that over 40% of domestic abuse cases involve the man being the victim. And then finally, we have the synopsis, which is the number one urban stage play, Man of the House, was written, directed, and produced by, again, our guest today, Andre Davis, a graduate of Kean University in New Jersey. The play premiered at Luna Stage Theater in West Orange, New Jersey in August 2014 and sold out 4 consecutive shows. Since then, it has continued to run throughout the tri-state and other venues, and it could be coming to a city or a state near you in 2022. As always, as we shared over the past few weeks, I need to also make this statement. And the statement reads, the views and opinions expressed here on News in Motion and Namosa Fridays are those of the authors, the guests, and they do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of News in Motion, myself, Gail Dudley, or any team member. Any content provided by our guests or authors are of their opinion and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic groups, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything. With that being said, I want to welcome Andre Davis to Namosa Friday. He was recently on News in Motion Live. And so we're glad to have him on this platform as well. We're going to dig a little bit deeper in this one-on-one podcast format. So I want to stop here and just say thank you and welcome to Andre Davis for the opportunity to continue to interview you and to have you on this platform. So welcome. So how has your play, Man of the House, impacted viewers? Meaning, they never thought that they would even think of a man being verbally abused or physically abused, or even think of it as being an issue. So you have this stage play and you're out there. What's the impact been?
The impact that I wanted from the play was to start the conversation, to open up the conversation, to open up people's minds to looking at it from the other side of the coin and still being able to identify it. And that's exactly what we've been able to accomplish. Thank God. It's really started the conversation to say, okay, so what really is abuse? It goes beyond what we know or what we are accustomed to hearing about when we hear about domestic abuse. It's normally a lot of physical, and in this case, it wasn't. So the impact that it's having is exactly what I prayed that it would have as the writer, was to open up that conversation and to open up people's minds to actually identifying what abuse is 360.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you find that people, and now that the conversation is on the table and people see the play and they're starting to have this ongoing conversation, do you find that people are then seeking help? And if so, where are they going, or where should they go?
So with the colleges, what was great, I remember we did a show down at Coppin State in Maryland, and there were so many great questions that came from the students. And one of the best things about that show was that the counselor was right there in the audience. And so for questions that really required a professional, they were able to respond to that. And I know several students actually went up to the counselor afterwards to book time in the office to speak one-on-one. So things like that are great. You're not going to have a huge outpouring of people, especially males, in that type of environment to say, hey, I'm abused, I need help. I've never had that happen. But for them to even go and speak with the counselor to the side to start to initiate that afterwards is a great thing.
Wow. Again, y'all, I'm speaking with Andre Davis, writer, producer, director of this particular play, Man of the House. And if you find yourself in a situation and you need to get help, you can contact in the US the Domestic Violence Hotline, which is 1 800 799 SAFE, SAFE, or 7233. Again, that's 1 800 799 SAFE, SAFE, or again 7233. Or you can send a text message to START, START, all caps, to 88788. Again, you can text the word START, all caps, to 88788. I also want to share with you who are tuning in, if you go to the domestic violence website, you can just Google domestic violence. There is a screen protector there that if your abuser happens to be coming in or you are afraid and you don't want to leave any cookies, there is a red X on the top right side of the screen. That's as you're looking at the screen, you can click that red X and there will not be any tracking of you visiting that site. If you find that you are in a domestic violence situation, our goal here is to get you to get some help. So with that said, Andre, I want to ask several more questions if I can.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What made you decide to write a play that included this topic of domestic abuse?
Sure. So I had the chance to perform in a couple of plays prior to Man of the House that dealt with domestic abuse, and they literally all told the same story. And this is the story, and not that the story is irrelevant, because it's very relevant, but it was the same plot where you had the guy and the girl. The guy was abusive. The guy next door likes the girl, and at the end, she falls in love with the guy next door, and they ride off into the sunset. And so I just thought it would be interesting to see what that looked like from the other side, because it was something that you rarely ever hear about. Like, I don't think I ever heard about domestic abuse where the man was abused prior to me writing about it. Not to say that it hasn't been discussed, of course it has, but it just wasn't something that I was accustomed to hearing about. And so I just decided to, be creative, especially this was the first play that I wrote that I was actually going to mount. I wanted it to be a little different and not follow the exact norm of, everything else that I've seen or heard or had the opportunity to be in.
Wow, wow. And you've been doing this since 2014, correct?
Yeah, this play.
This play since 2014. What do you think? Where do you think abuse begins? Like at what age?
Oh, that honestly, that can vary. That really does vary. I don't think that there is a certain age that we could pinpoint to say this is where it begins. Again, I think a lot of it would have to come from why the person is doing what they're doing. But I would say various stages of life. I don't really think there's an age we can pinpoint on that one.
Okay, okay. And in doing your research, because I'm sure you have completed a lot of research.
Yes.
What type
Yes.
of language would you say?
Yes.
What type of language and or behavior is considered abusive? Like you're out there and you're hearing from these college students, you're hearing from older adults, you're hearing from people who are seeking a divorce or have decided to divorce, or maybe they are already divorced. What is some of that language or behavior that you are hearing about, or maybe even witnessing?
Right. So the language to really look out for, it's the insults, the uh, you know, maybe it can be an attack on the weight, or they're saying, you can't do any better than me, or I'm trying to think of other things that is actually said to my character in the play. Again, attacking my manhood because of things that are literally at that point beyond my control. So the insults, absolutely. The character attacks, these are things that you want to look out for, and that can
Wow, I'm going to
absolutely
go back
signify
to
abuse.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead,
No,
Andre.
no, no. No. I was just saying that all of those things signify abuse.
Wow. I want to go back to your media deck because I thought this was very striking to me. Where it says in 2010, the CDC conducted a national intimate partner survey. And then it goes on to say the results show that over 40% of domestic abuse cases involve the man being the victim. That number, I don't think anyone would even think that that's the number. People would probably think that's 4%, not 40.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how what are some other ways? Okay, so we have your stage play. What are some other ways we can get this information out to let people know this isn't just about women being abused. This is also about men being abused.
Right. I think, a lot, and that's why the stage play is so good because, I can reach so many different people when we get in front of these audiences. I honestly just feel like it's more of us expanding the conversation. You know what I mean? That's really what it boils down to, is to expand the conversation, to not make it so one-sided all of the time, but to include. So when we're talking about domestic abuse, uh the face is no longer just a battered woman, but a battered woman and a battered man. So expanding the conversation, the symbols and what we know that represented, changing that to make it more inclusive, I think are some ways that we can get a better grasp on the fact that there are many men who suffer from domestic abuse.
Wow. I know we were sharing on News in Motion that you have new tour dates that are coming up for 2022. And then people were saying, are you coming to North Carolina? Are you coming to this place? Are you coming to that place? Can you give us an idea of where the tour will be going and if there are availabilities for people to book the tour to them, which means they need to pay for it. But can you talk about that? Can you give us some ideas of where you're going in 2022?
Absolutely. So right now, we have New Jersey, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, uh, Georgia, possibly North Carolina, possibly Dallas, and
Okay.
New York City. In New
But
York
not
City.
Ohio,
So
though, right?
no, I know someone asked about Ohio earlier. Not right now, but like you said, they can always reach out to me through my social media, A Diamond ENT, or send me an email. My email address is inquiry@adiamondent.com. If you're interested in booking the play, we would love to expand the tour beyond the cities that we already have. But as you said, Gail, it does cost. We can't do it for free.
It amazes me. We're all like, bring it here. And I don't think people really think about everything that's involved in that
Yeah.
there's a need for investors, there's a
Yeah.
need for people to put up the celebrities and to put up the cast, and not just the cast but the staff, the lights, the cameras, the action, just all of it. And I think we get so excited because what you're doing here is so needed, but we forget. And so even here, I'm going to pause a moment, but I do have a few more questions. I'm gonna pause a moment to say, listen, what Andre is doing and what his company is doing, A Diamond Entertainment, they're reaching college campuses. So if you have the means to say, well, you know what, I'm gonna buy or purchase a block of tickets, please do so. If you just want to send a donation or to be an investor, do that. Y'all, these make great Christmas gifts, holiday gifts, or whatnot, or just to say, this is an important topic and I want to be a part of it and I want to give. Y'all know I'm always talking about a call to action on News in Motion and the Most of Fridays. And this is the call of action I want to put out here today. Help this man do the work that he's doing along with his team. So if you could, before I ask you these final, maybe 3, maybe 4 questions, how can people reach you again? Because now this is all audio, so they're probably grabbing their pen or their smartphone or whatever. Can you tell them how they can reach you?
Sure, absolutely. And thank you for saying that. Um, all of my social media handles are at A Diamond ENT. And my website is adiamondent.com. The email, if you want to just email me and you don't want to go through my social media, it's inquiry@adiamondent.com. And that email is also listed on all of my social media as well. On my website, there's a donation button on the shows page. So underneath Man of the House, we have, merchandise that is for sale. And then there is a button in case you wanted to donate. You can do it safely through PayPal. So please feel free to do so. And I say this at the end of every show, because we have really picked up with the merchandise, with the selling of that, is that every dime of that goes right back in to help me further what it is that I'm doing. So no amount is too small. And I really do appreciate the support from everyone, honestly.
That's good. That's good. So y'all heard, and he has a donation page. So make sure y'all check that out. So many people forget about this. And remember, the containers are stuck somewhere. We don't know if the shelves are going to be stocked or not. So why not just go ahead and gift your nieces or nephews or your loved ones? Just say, you know what? I did this donation in your name to help Andre Davis continue what it is that he's doing. That's a great gift. That's a great gift. So with that being said, I do have a few more questions.
No,
How
absolutely.
has the healthy dialogue about verbal abuse affected future relationships, especially among college students who have viewed the production?
Yeah. So it absolutely makes them more aware. And again, I think that is the biggest thing, is that, because we hear so much about the physical aspect of abuse, so many times the verbal and the emotional goes right over our heads. So again, it really was an eye opener to make them more aware, so that when they hear or they experience certain behavior, they can identify it and stop it before it goes too far.
Wow. Wow. Have you ever, and this may be a personal question, I don't mean to, you can always say, I'm not answering that question. That's cool. But have you
I'm
ever
not
had
like that.
anybody just break down, or any of your cast just really break down because they're totally into the moment of what's going on? Has that ever happened? And if so, what was the outcome?
So I'm going to be honest. I've never been a victim of abuse, and I've never been an abuser. Uh, but just being in tune with the journey that my character is going on, I remember a couple of the last shows that we did, on the last tour. There was this one scene where I actually broke down because I was so connected to the journey of the character at that point. And I will say, I don't want to. I'm not going to say the name, but there is someone in the cast who has a family member who was going through the exact same thing, and the cast member did not know how to identify it. And watching the play, they said, "Oh my God, my so and so is going through the same thing." So it wasn't so much that they broke down, but it was just like that light bulb moment to say, "We got to get them help." You know what I mean? So it's things like that that make me know I did the right thing and that we're going in the right direction, and we really are touching so many lives with the piece. It's a drama comedy, and you have to be so careful. I had to be extremely careful as the writer, um, not to ever let the comedy intersect the actual subject of abuse, because it's not funny.
Right.
And so we've done a really great job of still making it entertaining, but never taken away from the fact that we are talking about something very serious. And that's one of the compliments that we've received leaving the colleges. I know when we went to William Patterson University in Jersey, the counselor came up to me afterwards and she said I was extremely nervous about this play coming here when I found out it was a drama and a comedy, but it was about domestic abuse. But she said, you guys did such a wonderful job. And I give all glory to God. But I'm also a student of things that I watch. And one of my favorite, favorite shows of all time is A Different World. And I really, without knowing that I was in class because they did an excellent job of always making these shows entertaining, but they touched on some very deep subject matters. And
Yes.
so I'm following in the same footsteps.
Yes, yes. That's one of my favorite shows. I watch the reruns. It's like,
All the
yes.
time.
It's like, yes. So let me ask this question. I didn't ask this when we were on News and Emotion. I'm going to ask it now. Ask this question now. When I saw drama comedy on the media deck, when Cynthia sent it over to me, I thought, how do you balance that? Which you've answered that. But then here's my other question. Did you have comedy because it was dealing with a male being abused and you had to find a way to bring that in, or am I far off from that?
No, so honestly, it's just really about for me, it was about knowing the audience that I was going to target.
Okay.
And because I've done so many of these plays that do cater towards blacks, right? Um, the drama comedies just work with us. They work. And so my job was just, and literally, because some of the comedians that are in the play are extremely funny. And so these were conversations that we had a lot during rehearsal, was to make sure that they understood where that comedy had to stop. So yeah, but
Yeah. Wow. In the play, and we talked about this earlier, but in the play, the female lead character demeans the male lead character. Pretty much, she attempts to emasculate him. What are some ways, because you're that character, right? You're the male character, correct? What are
Correct.
some ways that whether you were in rehearsal or on the actual live play, stage play, what are some ways that you dealt with that so that you would not respond with violence? Because I can only imagine when you're caught up in that scene, what that would be like.
Yeah. And so honestly, that was a lot of it's funny because when I say this, people are like, what? But I wrote the play and it took me character development to be able to connect with my character, which a lot of people think it's odd because you wrote it, so you should be able to connect. No, but the character is so far away from who I am as a person.
Right.
I really had to take a step back and think about his journey up until that point. And so when you go through that work and you go through that journey, that's not really in his nature to be physical with the female, because of his values, because of the way that he was raised, because of his he's like a hopeless romantic that he really wants this to work. So he's willing to just, go through a lot of things. But as far as, beating her, now there is one scene I will say where he is fed up. I won't say what happens in the scene, but he does have his moment to say, okay, that's it.
Right.
And that's when I can kind of be more myself.
I can only imagine. Just going through everything that I've been looking at to interview you, I was like, wow, I need to see this play myself. So let's talk about real-time solutions for those who are being abused. Where should they go? What should they do? Again, we've talked about the domestic violence hotline, y'all, which is 800-799-SAFE, SAFE. Again, that's 7233. Or you can text the word START, all caps, to 88788. So other than that, what are some real life solutions for those being abused that when you're having dialogue with students or after the play and people are talking about it, where do you send them to get help?
Right. So that's good. For colleges, we always would refer them to their counselors. I think but one of the biggest things for me is that people reach out to those who are actually trained in dealing with the issue that they're going through. A lot of times we try to turn to our friends and we turn to our families, and especially in the Black community, it's going to be a little hard sometimes to go to your boys and say, my girl is abusing me. You know what I mean? Because we are so built up to be men, you'll get looked at like, what is wrong with you? Like, you know what I mean? You're a punk, or stop being soft, or if you don't put your foot down, and it's
Right.
not always that easy. So counselors, I think, are great because of the anonymity, number one, and number two, they're actually trained to deal with the issue that you're going through. Another resource that I know a lot of people use is their pastors, because you should have that same level. But even sometimes you don't even feel comfortable speaking with your pastor about things like that. So that would be my number one, would be to reach out to a counselor or a licensed professional who, again, is trained in dealing with that situation.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because I shared with you earlier, we've been covering this all month, every Monday.
Mhm.
And we had one young lady on who told us her story. And again, these are their views and how they've expressed them. They do not necessarily line up with our policies here at News in Motion. But she was sharing how with her first pregnancy with her husband, she had to go to the hospital because there were some complications, and when she was discharged, and she's still pregnant, when she was discharged, they were on the highway. Her ex husband pulled over on the side of the highway. He was mad and told her to walk home. Now, she was supposed to
Oh,
go home to bed rest and not be on her feet. So we heard that. Then a young lady, first marriage, abuse, she got out, but then her sister um, was also in an abusive relationship and just recently was murdered by her abuser.
mm,
And he literally stood over her as she was dying from, I believe it was a
man.
gunshot wound. So we hear those stories when we're talking about women. And I can only imagine, I think about how many men have been abused or have been murdered from their abuser. And how do we help them? And can men come together? On News and Motion a lot, and even on the Most of Fridays, we talk a lot about people are hesitant to come to us today because they've been at the table when we've been talking about other people
Hmm.
or how we've
Hmm.
made different comments or whatnot. And I'm always trying to caution people, start watching what you say, because you
Hmm.
never know who's at that table is dealing with something. And once they hear your thoughts or the others thoughts about it, they're going to be less likely to respond. So as a writer, a producer, and a director, what do you have to say to that?
Yeah, I honestly, what the thing that we have to remember is that this abuse is coming from a place of hurt, and
Yeah,
hurt people.
yeah,
Um, and so many times you want to see the better in someone, and or you see the potential in someone. But it really, really would benefit you more to acknowledge what is, as opposed to what could be, and
right.
to move according to what is. So many times, and like that, that the story about letting the female off and making her walk while she's pregnant, like that, you
Yeah,
know. And so many times you'll hear people say, he's not always like that. She's not always like that. But it doesn't get better; it gets worse. You know what
right.
So that's just honestly my advice. I'm not a professional, but that's just my advice, and not just for domestic abuse, but with life, is to
Yeah.
take it for what it is, as opposed to what it actually could be.
Wow. Yeah. I can keep talking to you on and on and on and on and on. This has been great. I want to
Now,
just go again and give this definition to everyone. What is domestic violence? Again, this is coming from Andre Davis Media Deck. Domestic violence can be physical, emotional, economic, psychological actions, or threats of actions that influence another person. This includes any behaviors that intimidate, manipulate, humiliate, isolate, frighten, terrorize, coerce, threaten, blame, hurt, injure, or wound somebody. Emotional abuse, undermining an individual's sense of self-worth and or self-esteem, is abuse. This may include, but is not limited to, constant criticism, diminishing one's abilities, name calling, or damaging one's relationship with his or her children. Man of the House focuses on the emotional abuse aspect of domestic violence. So, y'all, if you find yourself in any challenging situation, again, the domestic violence hotline here in the US is 1-800-799-SAFE. That's SAFE, or 7233. Or you can text the word START, all caps, START, to 88788. Again, if you go to the website, there is a red mark up in the top right hand side of the screen that if you are worried at all, be sure to click out of that. It will erase all cookies on the computer. I know earlier, Andre, we talked about one of a person wrote in anonymously on News in Motion and said that he has been pretty much excommunicated from his family once the family knew that he openly shared that he was being abused, both verbally and physically, from his spouse. And they said that he brought upon an embarrassment to the family to open that up. What do you say to that? Because I'm sure there are people who that's happening. Even they're losing friends.
Yeah.
So what would you say to that? And I know, again, you're not a therapist, but you have done your research in putting this play together. So if you have any words of wisdom to that, please share.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I think that that is extremely unfortunate that the individual had to go through that. For me, and I'm just saying what I do. That takes a lot of prayer, a lot of meditation, a lot of forgiveness. As far as friends are concerned, it's in those moments, in those trying times, that the people you consider friends will either show themselves to be true or not so much. And so while it may be hurtful in that moment, it truly is a blessing that you can see who you're surrounding yourself with and make the changes accordingly. It's not as easy with family, but again, it's just about prayer, forgiveness, and meditation. Hopefully, that individual didn't stop with the family and they actually did still go seek counseling, because that's really what's needed. And, prayerfully, those relationships can be mended with the family, because that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah, that one hit me pretty hard. So I was like, whoa,
Yeah,
whoa, whoa, whoa.
yeah.
Well, okay, so we know that you're probably going to move this from a tour to an actual film. Is that right? So can you tell the audience
Yes.
about that?
Yeah, so the film is completed. I always knew I wanted to turn it into a film. And so we'll be shooting that. I want to shoot that before the tour goes up. So we'll probably shoot the film. I'm looking right now, March or April. But the script is done, so that's the hard part is done.
That's great. Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations. So you gotta let
Thank
us
you.
know. Is it gonna be on Netflix? Where's it going? You gotta tell us.
I'm thinking Amazon, or I'm looking right now. Someone
Amazon
has put me
Prime.
in,
Okay.
yeah, Amazon Prime, or I'm actually looking right now into BET Plus,
Oh, BT
because they
Plus.
have,
Okay.
yeah. So someone was I'm subscribed to BET Plus, but I have no idea how to get my films up there. So someone is going to help me with that. So one of those streaming platforms.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. So do you do
Thank
any
you.
coaching or anything like that? If there's a young person or somebody saying, I want to get into film, I want to get into screen writing, or I want to get into acting, do you do any coaching? You got to expand your platform now.
I know. You know what? Honestly, I haven't. I don't do any coaching right now. There's a nonprofit that I work with. They're based out of Patterson, called Epitome of Soul. So I've done classes with their students. One was a story format, teaching them how to structure a story and how you start and then you rise and the climax and then you fall and then it's the end. So I've done a couple of those classes and it was fun. but not right now. Not right now.
I got you. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me on Mimosa Friday. And for those of you who want the mimosa recipe for today, I'm going to tell you to take some heavy whipped cream. You're going to take some orange soda. And you're going to take the champagne. You're going to mix them together. And you're going to put a little bit of whipped cream on top and some sugar around that rim, and you're good to go. But stay tuned. Coming up in November, we're going to start talking about different holiday mimosas. So get ready for that. And if you have any mimosa recipes, please send them in. You can send those to info.gaildudley, G-A-I-L-D as in David, U-D as in David, L-E-Y @gmail.com. Again, that's info.gaildudley@gmail.com. You could get a gift certificate to Starbucks or other places at this time. So again, Andre, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. And I wish you nothing but success.
Thank you. The pleasure was absolutely all mine. And thank you for having me. I really do. I really appreciate the platform.
Are you ready to raise awareness of your brand, product, or service? Gail, the host of News in Motion and Mimosa Friday podcast, is an influencer who brings attention to every product she mentions. She started out with a few followers and is growing her base daily. Listeners tune in Monday through Friday from around the U.S. and beyond. Let Gail help you expand and connect with new customers from all around. To get your brand, product, or services mentioned on her shows, just contact info.gaildudley@gmail.com to request her media deck. Catch Gail each weekday on News in Motion on Facebook Live at facebook.com/newsinmotion or her YouTube at youtube.com/GailDudley. You can also follow Gail on Instagram and Twitter @GailDudley and visit her website, www.gaildudley.com. Until next week, as Gail always signs off, stay well and remember to make some moves.